Let's talk about Dead to Rights. This is a film that announces itself as something unflinching, something that refuses to cushion the blow. It's a profoundly grim and dark watch, not in an exploitative way, but in the sense that it drags you directly into the cold and never once lets you look away. Set against one of the most harrowing chapters in human history, the film follows a small group of civilians who take shelter inside a photographic studio, a place that becomes both a sanctuary and a trap. And inside those walls, surrounded by chaos, death, and the constant threat of discovery, they take on a mission that feels almost mythic in its courage: to document the atrocities committed by the Imperial Japanese Army and somehow get the truth out into the world. What makes Dead to Rights immediately stand apart is its sense of intimacy. The film forces you to sit with people who are terrified, exhausted, and traumatized. You feel every moment of hesitation, every whispered plan, every photograph developed in trembling hands. It's a film that shows you the unbearable weight of witnessing horror while still trying to hold on to the slivers of dignity, compassion, and hope, even when the outside world has made those things feel impossible. And after watching it, I can say this: Dead to Rights is not an easy film to stomach, nor is it designed to be. It's a film that confronts you, challenges you, and leaves you sitting in silence. But it's also a film with purpose, a story about memory, evidence, resistance, and the impossible bravery of ordinary people caught in the jaws of history. So in this review, I want to break down how it accomplishes that, what works, what really doesn't, and why this is one of the most haunting cinematic experiences I've had in a long time. War movies now are a tough sell. Audiences are understandably wary. Lean too triumphant and you drift straight into propaganda. Lean too bleak and people mistake the film for propaganda anyway, which is honestly pretty stupid. And more than anything, we've collectively hit a fatigue point with the war is hell mantra. Not because it's untrue, but because so many films repeat it without offering anything new. What Dead to Rights does is interesting. It walks that line between familiar brutality and fresh emotional grounding. Not perfectly, not consistently, but enough that it feels like the filmmakers actually had something to say. On a surface level, the film is astonishingly well crafted. The cinematography is crisp and disciplined, favoring a muted palette that fits the historical weight without developing into the usual muddy brown war film aesthetic. There's a precision to the shot composition that makes the violence feel immediate but not exploitative. And the grading gives the entire runtime a cold, bruised look, as if the film itself is exhausted by what it's showing us. The score is equally impressive, maybe even the film's secret weapon. Particularly in one scene near the latter half of the film, where the Japanese line up what I can only assume are thousands of Chinese that get mercilessly slaughtered. The score dips into this beautiful orchestral dissonance of strings, which is absolutely haunting in ways I can't even describe. It's horrifying, but the score refuses to sensationalize it. I just wish it had stayed like that. Writing-wise, the film is almost overwhelming in its thematic intentions. It has a clear, forceful message about the resilience of civilians and the moral necessity of standing up. Not in some triumphant Hollywood way, but in the smaller, more painful sense of refusing to disappear. There's a groundedness to the characters that make even brief interactions feel like they matter. When the film sinks into its introspective beats, when it shows the emotional cost of simply staying alive, it becomes genuinely powerful. Tonally though, this is where things start to wobble. The film is at its most effective when it doesn't look away. The massacre scene, the horrific moment with the baby, in those quiet aftermaths that let the horror linger. But then there are other scenes where it does look away, just as things get too uncomfortable. And weirdly, this inconsistency works both for and against it. Sometimes the restraint is meaningful, a way of respecting the audience. Other times it feels like the film is trying to spare us in moments that shouldn't be softened. Still, even with that uneven tone, the emotional core lands. The performances are committed without being showy, the script avoids melodramatic monologues, and the film never pretends that any of this is heroic. It's harsh, but not empty, violent, but not celebratory, most of the time. It's a film that clearly cares about the people it depicts. The brutality is never aestheticized. If anything, the film seems intent on reminding us that these events didn't need dramatic embellishment to be horrifying. And that restraint, when the film sticks to it, makes the violence feel honest. Exhausting, but honest. The middle section in particular is where everything clicks. The pacing slows, the narrative breathes, and the film becomes less about the spectacle of conflict and more about the emotional fallout. These scenes are where the movie transcends the typical war film mold. It understands fear, powerlessness, humiliation, and the desperation to retain even a shred of dignity in a system designed to erase it. But with all that said, the ending is a real problem. Not a small issue, a fundamental tone-breaking misstep. As soon as the film enters its final stretch, when the Japanese war criminals are being executed, you can feel the shift. The framing becomes more triumphant. The score swells in this celebratory way, and suddenly the film seems to be asking the audience to cheer. And no matter how monstrous a person may be, celebrating death in a film this grounded feels wrong. It betrays the nuance the story had been carefully building. The subject matter itself isn't the issue. Historically, vengeance was served to the people who committed the atrocities, but the tone of that final scene, the almost victorious musical cue behind the execution, crashes against everything the film spent 2 hours establishing. It's jarring, not because the death is depicted, but because the movie seems to momentarily forget its own moral stance on suffering and humanity. And that disconnect keeps Dead to Rights from reaching absolute greatness for me. It's still a remarkable film, beautifully made, thematically potent, emotionally brutal, but it undercuts itself in the final moments. Even so, the impact of what works is strong enough that I absolutely recommend it. Dead to Rights isn't perfect, but it's haunting, ambitious, and in many scenes, devastatingly effective. A near masterwork with one major misfire. I feel like this is probably my Count of Monte Cristo for this year. Not nearly as good, not even close, but it is a staggeringly large-scale, well-made foreign film that will likely not even see a Best International Picture nod at the Oscars. Nor will Late Shift, so, fuck me, I guess. But as always, maybe I have no idea what I'm talking about. So until next time, keep watching movies, keep noticing the little details, and remember to form your own opinions.